There are 3 world-famous luxury afternoon teas in London that tourists love to book, but they are expensive. So in this video, I'm gonna test them all and tell you if I think they are a waste of your hard-earned money. By the way, I'm Jess, a London expert who's lived in the city for over 12 years. I'm the founder of Love in London, and I have a critical eye and mouth for afternoon tea, so I am going to be very honest in this. For each afternoon tea, I will cover ambiance, food and drink, service, and price. And finally, at the end, I'm going to tell you what I think of each of them and if they are a waste of money or could be a great option for you to book for your trip. Okay, let's start with the afternoon tea that has been made famous by Instagram, for better or for worse. A lot of you probably have heard of the afternoon tea at Sketch, and to be honest, I have avoided going to this tea for years because for a very long time on their website, they basically said if you have any dietary requirement or allergy, that you would automatically be given this one like catch-all afternoon tea tower, which had no dairy, no sugar, no meat, no fish, no gluten, and probably no taste and no texture. And I was like, why would I spend my money on that? That sounds insane. But since then, I've had lots of my followers DM me and be like, actually, I had an intolerance or I am vegetarian, and they had a selection for me that was really good. So I was like, okay, we should try this. And for this one, I brought my friend Megan along because it would be so weird if I did afternoon tea on my own and I was just filming myself eating the whole time. It's just, I couldn't do it. So friends, come along. Let's start with the ambiance. So I have seen pictures and videos of this place for years, so I thought maybe I was gonna be a little bit like, yeah, I've seen it before, it's not that impressive. But actually, when I walked into Sketch, I was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. It's quite whimsical, the decor. It feels a little bit like it's Alice in Wonderland. And actually, I was visiting in May, which is when they do Sketch in Bloom, which is when they completely transform the space and just do amazing flower stuff everywhere. And this year, the theme for Sketch in Bloom is Jane Austen in celebration of her 250th birthday. So there was a lot of Jane Austen and book elements around the restaurant as well. And all the afternoon teas are served in the gallery, which is this very grand yellow room. It actually used to be pink, but they redid it like about 2 or 3 years ago. And wow, I mean, it is actually so stunning, down to the art that's on the wall, how they've lit up the bar, and even the glassware and the plates were just so beautiful. And something you might know that Sketch is very famous for is their bathrooms. So you basically walk through some double doors and you find yourself looking up at this big grand room with a splitting staircase, which was lined with flowers and Jane Austen books. Then you go up and the toilets are in eggs. So you go pee in an egg. And then after you've peed in an egg, you go wash your hands, you get a really good Instagrammable moment, and you're like, wow, this is actually probably the coolest bathroom / washroom in all of London. So I actually do think it lives up to that title that it's been given by many people. Also, during the afternoon tea, that had a 4-piece orchestra playing classical music, but of modern songs. It was very Bridgerton, you know how they play like the modern like Taylor Swift songs during the show, but it's like violins and things like that. It was so beautiful. And also a couple of times during the afternoon tea, they stopped the music and they had 2 actors come in and they played this like kind of star-crossed lovers little thing for about like 2 or 3 minutes. And it was just a nice little touch you wouldn't get anywhere else. Okay, let's talk food and drink, because the visuals will never distract me from bad food or bad drink. Like, you gotta also deliver on that as well. Now, classic afternoon teas usually consist of you starting by selecting which tea that you'd like to have. So at Sketch, they have a cute little curated menu of a selection. They can always give you a recommendation if you want it, and they bring it to you in your own little teapot, and you can try different ones if you want to. Or if you don't want tea, you can just get coffee. Now, because it was Sketch in Bloom, you had to take the special Jane Austen themed afternoon tea. You couldn't do the traditional one. And this special one came with a glass of champagne. You couldn't opt out of it. You could get a non-alcoholic one, but it was automatically included. But Megan and I chose a brut that was delightful. Then the sandwiches came out, which is usually where you start the afternoon tea experience. And I have to say, these sandwiches potentially were the best selection I have ever had at an afternoon tea, with my favorite being this cute little focaccia one that came in the focaccia paper and it was tied in a bow, and I love focaccia. The sandwiches were just great. Yeah, I think they were better than where I've had it in most places. And notably, they ask you if you want a refill, so I did get a second focaccia sandwich because it was really good. Moving on to the scones, which were great because they kept them warm in a napkin, as they should be doing, to be honest. And then they did just the traditional cream and jam. I always do the cream first, not the jam, because that's how I like to do it. And finally were the sweets at the top. They were cute. By the time we got to them, as often happens with afternoon tea, I was so stuffed, so I only tried a little bit of each, but they were good and they were cute little selections. Overall, I would say the food and the drink I was really happy with. One point of frustration though, I booked online, and when you book online, they don't let you add a dietary requirement or an allergy into the online booking. You have to email them or call them, which in my opinion at this price point is incredibly inconvenient. And I had to call them twice because once I had confirmed Megan was coming with me, she has a mango allergy. So I had to call them again to tell them, in addition to my vegetarian, we also just need to make sure we avoid mango. It's just a bit annoying. Service. I was extremely impressed with the waitstaff in the gallery room. Like, wow. They were so kind, super professional, very elegant, and they anticipated our needs before they came up. So as soon as our tea was about to be finished, they would come and ask if we wanted to try something else. They came over as soon as a plate was done. They offered refills a few times if we were kind of like trying to figure out if we wanted something. The only thing I would say that bothered me is I was brought to my table with my jacket, and they did not offer me the option to go to the cloakroom before I was brought to the table, and they didn't offer to take my jacket either. I asked where the cloakroom was and no one took my jacket. If I remember correctly, I had to go bring it to the cloakroom, which in a very luxurious establishment like this is not really acceptable. Price. Okay, so this was a special afternoon tea, which included champagne, which was 115 pounds per person. And with service charge, that was 132 pounds 25p and 264 pounds 50 for the two of us. Damn, these afternoon teas have gotten so expensive since I moved here. Holy moly. Take note though, if you were to come when there wasn't a special theme on, that the afternoon tea would be 30 pounds less at 95 pounds per person, not including champagne. I'm going to compare the price of all three afternoon teas at the end of the video, so keep watching to see that and also hear my thoughts on it. Okay, there's honestly no way that I can travel abroad these days without being connected. I need Google Maps, I need WhatsApp, and I want to stay safe while I'm solo traveling. But paying for roaming with your home carrier can really add up, and getting one of those finicky little local physical SIMs can be really annoying. But you can use SimLocal's eSIMs, which is the easy way to stay connected while you're traveling. Just choose your destination country and how much data that you need, then activate your digital SIM on your phone when you arrive in just a few easy steps. No physical SIM, no messing around. You'll stay connected at local rates, which will save you a lot of money, and you won't have to change your phone number. SimLocal is highly rated with almost 5 stars on TripAdvisor and Google, and they have a 60-day return policy, so you don't have to worry. SimLocal partners with top networks like 3, Orange, and EE, so you always get the best local coverage and fast speeds. 4G and 5G wherever you go. Get 10% off your SimLocal purchase with our discount code and use the link down in the description box, or you can scan this QR code to open it up on your phone. Plus, you'll be supporting everything that we do on Love in London. Okay, let's get back to the video. The next afternoon tea was right around the corner in Mayfair at Claridge's. Now, Claridge's is a hotel that is an institution. It was first opened in 1856, and it has been visited by many, many members of the royal family, and it is a celebrity hotspot. This is also just the place that you book when you want people to raise their eyebrows when you tell them where you stayed in London. I mean, it's gonna also come with a very hefty price tag of probably 800 to 900 pounds, at least per night, probably more, but that's what you have to pay for this kind of luxury, I guess. And Claridge does one of the most famous afternoon teas in the entire world. I have been to this afternoon tea before, however, it's been many years, so I was definitely due a refresh and a retrial. And for this retest, I brought my friend Tom along, who you might recognize from the YouTube channel Eat, Sleep, Dream English. This is Teacher Tom, and I was glad to have somebody with me to drink some champagne and try all the little goodies. Now, they did have the option to either do just the classic afternoon tea or to do their special theme that they had on at the time, which was for the Chelsea flower show. So it was like a Chelsea in bloom kind of theme. We did opt for that one. Okay, so ambiance. The afternoon tea is served in the foyer and reading room, which definitely is very grand, and it is quite old school luxury, if not a tiny bit, a little bit tired, slightly. But what was nice was there was plenty of spaces in between the tables, so you never felt like you were on top of anyone. And there was also a piano player that was playing music on and off, but not too loudly, so you could still hear each other. It was a little bit hot in the room though. I did notice that. If I'm saying it's hot, it's definitely hot because I'm always cold. Also, this afternoon tea is known for its iconic jade and white chevron plates and mugs. So anytime you like think of Claridge's afternoon tea, you think of the plateware and the cups, because it's like, it's what you think of. Now, considering they have done a theme with the Chelsea flower show, the decor was not incredibly impressive. There were some in like the lobby of the hotel. There was some additional flower displays that aren't usually there. However, they weren't anything like crazy or over the top, so it kind of felt like they could just be there all year round. After going to Sketch, I felt like I was kind of expecting like flowers galore where you can tell something special is going on, and they just really didn't have that, especially in the afternoon tea room. Food and drink. I have some good news and some bad news. Where this afternoon tea experience shines is the tea list. It's curated, but also have some very rare options that you won't find many places and that they don't charge you extra for. Like, we started with the Malawi Antler, which is only served in 2 places in the entire world, Claridge's and Noma, which is a very famous Michelin-starred restaurant in Copenhagen. And I believe this is the only tea in the entire world that, instead of being made from leaves, is made from the stems. And it was really nice. We also tried the Sri Lanka hand-rolled, which is a very rare tea. They only make a few kilos of it a year because of the process and how delicate that the tea leaves are. And that was really good too. So if you really want to try special teas and really be wowed in that sense, this is the place to go. But the food was, I think at this price point, it was a bit meh. The sandwiches were good, but they were just kind of fine. Very classic, nothing that really stood out as being amazing. I did like the scones themselves, and also Claridge's has a special jam that is jasmine infused, which makes it really light, and that was really tasty. And the sweets, I just think the sweets, they had so many opportunities to do something really cool with the flower theme in the sweets, and I just think it kind of fell flat. I've been to places that are not as expensive, but have done really artistic things with the sweet treats that I think we could have done at Claridge's. So they tasted nice, but I was a bit disappointed in that. But notably, they were very happy to give us refills of anything that we wanted. So we were stopped when we left. Service. So while I wouldn't say the service was particularly attentive or refined, we ended up having really nice conversations with a couple of the different staff members, especially this one Greek guy who honestly was cracking us up with his stories and his jokes. I think he like loved us, so he kept coming over to us. He also like loved the camera, and it was just a really nice experience that kind of made it feel a little bit less stuffy and more relaxed. And also, when you're traveling, those people interactions are the things that you remember the most over anything else that you'll do on your trip. So I really enjoyed that part. Also, they did take my jacket from me as soon as I got to the table, so that was good. And with the Chelsea Flower Show themed afternoon tea, at the end, they brought over this beautiful, like quite big potted plant for you to take home. And it is from a garden or a farm that is only 30 minutes away from Claridge's. So it was super local, which I thought was like a really nice gift. I mean, I liked it. I took it home with me. I still have it. However, it was only for the women. So I paid the same for Tom and he didn't get one. And if you're a tourist and you've flown flown over, it's not really a realistic gift because you're not gonna fly back to wherever you're going with this huge potted plant. So a nice touch, but I think they could have done something else. Price. Okay, are you ready for this? The special themed afternoon tea was 125 pounds per person, and that did include rosé champagne, plus 15% service, and 9 pounds for a bottle of still water. 9 pounds. So for both Tom and I, the total came to just over 286 pounds. More thoughts on this later. And for comparison, the traditional afternoon tea was only 95 pounds. Only. No champagne. Now let's move on to another absolute classic, the Ritz. Yes, it's a historic hotel dating back to 1902. It has classic luxury written all over it. However, I personally think its claim to fame is in the film Notting Hill, as where Julia Roberts' character stays, and it's also where that horse and hound scene happens, if you know what I'm talking about. The girls who get it, get it. I had done this afternoon tea before for my birthday, but again, it had been many, many years ago when I turned 16, obviously. And it was due a new review. And for this one, I brought my friend Kelly along, who is just such a delight. Okay, let's talk ambiance. So the Ritz is very old school, classic luxury. And as soon as you walk into the building, you're greeted with like a grand entrance, really tall ceilings, this very like old school furniture around, a grand piano, there's flower displays. There's also displays of tiaras and very, very expensive jewelry that you can buy. Not me, someone can buy it. However, I would say that if you look at the details, it definitely needs a refresh and a bit of a modernization. That is potentially just my opinion. I like more modern places, but if you look at some of the details in like the bathroom, it just feels very like grandma's old house that needed to be renovated 30 years ago. That being said, a lot of people really like that. So if that's your thing, then you'll love it here. The afternoon tea is served in the palm room. And actually the way that they sat us is that we were on the edge of the room and they also faced us out, which was actually quite nice because it kind of felt like nobody else was with us. And like, I love enjoying afternoon tea with nobody around me. It kind of felt like a private engagement, and it made the whole room just feel like really spacious. Occasionally there was somebody who was playing piano music, but it wasn't too loud. We could still chat and we were yapping. Absolutely yapping. So for food and drink, interestingly, they automatically bring out 2 rows of finger sandwiches for you, which is double what most places would start you with. Of course, you can get refills, but for me, it's a lot of food. I can't eat that much food. So it felt quite wasteful, especially because they let you bring other stuff home, but they don't let you bring sandwiches home. This seems to be kind of becoming quite common for afternoon tea places. I think it's a health and safety thing, but it does mean that if you don't want to eat double the amount of sandwiches, they're just going to get thrown in the bin. And I just think, why wouldn't you just bring the first row and then ask if you want refills? The scones, I didn't think the scones were good, and Kelly agreed. There was something about like their texture, they were a bit dry. The thing I would say is that they didn't do anything to keep the scones warm. They brought them out a bit later, but then they kind of just put them on the tray and didn't cover them with a cloth napkin like most places would do. So I think the fact that they weren't warm by the time we did end up getting to them means that they weren't as good, which is such a disappointment because we both love scones. I would say the sweets were traditional, nothing particularly over the top or impressive, but kind of what you would expect at like a classic traditional afternoon tea. And I was so stuffed by the time we got to them. I did try most of them, but I just could not do all of them. They tasted nice, but I just couldn't get there. Interestingly too, they do come around with a cake tray and they offer you a slice of extra cake basically. And they had 2 different options. You could have as much as you want. So if you really like sweets and you also can eat a lot of food, I think this is a great option for you. This was also the place that had the best birthday celebration. So they actually bring you your own little personal birthday cake. If you say ahead of time that it's someone's birthday, they light a candle, they do a bit of a singing thing, they play happy birthday on the piano because there's usually quite a few people who are doing birthdays at that time. And so for a birthday celebration, this is a good spot. But like, you better like cake and sweets because you are getting a lot of it and probably taken a lot of it home too. Also, Kelly and I ordered a glass of champagne because I had had champagne at all the other afternoon teas, and we just got like a normal one that tasted nice. Okay, for service, the staff were quite attentive. They were very good. They also were quite friendly. They were like, oh, how's your day going? What have you been up to today? Which is quite nice. They also were really good at just kind of letting Kelly and I do our thing because we hadn't seen each other for a while. So we were catching up, yapping a lot, but they were always there to refill us on our tea, to ask us if we want something else, if you want another glass of champagne, stuff like that. Also, the staff were really patient with us. We were quite slow at selecting what tea we wanted. We were also eating really slow because we were catching up, and they were like quite patient, even though I know they kind of had to turn the table over at some point, but they did it in a really classy, patient way, so I appreciated that. I also ended up leaving my Amex card there, and they texted me and were like, oh, do you want to come back and get it? And I was like, yeah, I do. So I went back and got it later. So I was grateful that they did that. But overall, I would say the service here is like 8 out of 10. Okay, so price for afternoon tea, this is a classic one, and it goes for 79 pounds per person. We also ordered champagne, which was 28 pounds per glass. Ooh, that was the cheapest one. So it was 107 pounds per person total. And the Ritz has the cheapest service charge out of the 3 of them at only 12.5%, which is usually standard for London. So the total for 2 people was just over 240 pounds. I have spent like 900 pounds on afternoon teas in the last week. It's all for you guys. Hope you appreciate it. So here are my thoughts and advice if you're looking to potentially book one of these for your trip. Here's a comparison of the price of each of the afternoon teas, including a glass of champagne, and keeping in mind Claridge's and Sketch were special themed teas. Sketch was 115 pounds per person with a 15% service charge. Claridge's 125 per person, 15% service charge, and the Ritz was 107 per person with 12.5% service. So Claridge's was the most, Sketch was in the middle, and the Ritz was the most affordable. And then for the traditional option without champagne, we had Sketch at 95 per person, Claridge's also at 95 per person, and the Ritz was at 79 per person. So overall, if you want a really special tea experience, like you want to try teas that you won't be able to find anywhere else in the world, I would go to Claridge's. That is the place for that. For best value, I think the Ritz is the one to go with because it is just the cheapest, but also you get a lot of food at the Ritz. And if you're going for a birthday, they give you that extra cake as well. I just think like that's where you're getting the most for your money. But in terms of the best, and it's crazy to say because for so long I was like, nope, I don't think that one's gonna be good. I'm not telling people to go, but I really think that Sketch blew it out of the water. And I definitely think it is worth the money that you pay to go there. From the excellent staff, the great food, the little focaccia sandwich, so good, to the incredible, over the top, but really beautiful and modern decor, the glassware, the egg toilets, the 4-piece orchestra playing Bridgerton-like songs. I mean, I just walked away from it thinking, wow, that was incredible, and I think a really good use of money. And it wasn't even the most expensive, which is crazy. Which afternoon tea are you thinking of trying when you come to London? Let me know in the comments. And if you are going to be booking some attractions to see while you're here, I actually ranked the most popular sites in London from best to worst, in my opinion. And you can watch that video and see what I thought by clicking the box that's popping up right here. Go watch that next. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.